Our next talk is from Katie Robinson. She's going to give us a talk entitled Being Transgender, a Personal Story About Growing Up Trans in Yorkshire. Welcome, Katie. Thank you.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Katie Robinson. I'm a 71-year-old trans woman who lives in Leeds, but was born and raised in Doncaster. Just for background, I'm married to a wonderful wife who deserves far better than me. We have 2 amazing daughters and 5 of the most awe-inspiring grandchildren anyone could wish for. I came out as trans 6 years ago. I'm a member of 3 LGBT support groups and also a trustee of an older LGBT charity in Leeds called Friends of Dorothy. A young boy, I always knew I was different, had no interest in playing out with my older brother, with the other kids in the street. But of course, in the 1950s, 1960s, his mum said, "Get out with your brother." You went. No reasoning on this. I was 9 years old when I first realised that the differences that I felt were related to my body image. At the time, I'd seen a younger female relative when she was in the bath. I was staying over at their house for the day. I knew straight away when I saw her body that mine should have been like that. I should have had that body shape. I also knew how much trouble I would be in if I told anyone. And anyway, there was no way changing my body could happen. Not back then. So I kept quiet. We all have a mental body map of what we should look like. And it's something that's inbuilt to it. But there was no way that I could acknowledge that or change it or become what I thought so perfectly fitted myself as a person. It was very upsetting for me then to not know what to do. And the way that I cope with emotions like that is that I suppress them. I just go, put them down, change the subject, start thinking about something else. Of course, that doesn't make them go away. They're still inside of you, underneath. They just never get acknowledged. For me, that was survival technique. From when I'd been 3 years old, my parents split up and I was moved between one parent and the other, and lacked the emotional support that children today can get in those situations. Again, I couldn't acknowledge what I wanted. I wanted to be a girl. Girls who have male interests and pursuits, it's easier for them. They can wear jeans and climb trees. It's just they're a tomboy. For a boy, though, I couldn't wear a dress unless I had a very supportive family, which back in the 50s and 60s, there were very few of those about. So I just had to get on with it and cope. So I just hid it, I kept quiet. I did whatever I could to appear to be normal, to appear to be as I was expected to be. When I was 15 years old and I was in a boys' grammar school, I started listening to the other boys talking in the playgrounds of their experiences, their attitudes towards girls particularly the crude and how crude and disrespectful they were to them. And it was just so wrong for me. I just couldn't see why they would want to think of girls in that way. And I had the same perspective that girls. Whenever I look at things, it's from a female point of view. You know, how would I feel in that situation if I could be a girl? Again, I kept quiet. I never joined in these conversations because I knew the response of 13-year-old boys would be. So I hide my feelings. I bury my emotions. When I started work, I left grammar school and got an apprenticeship. I was fortunate to have a mentor there who cross-dressed, and he was able to supply me with clothes, with underwear that I could wear underneath my overalls while I was working, and have that experience of having female clothes during the working day, and then again take them off, change back into my regular clothes, and just carry on as everyone would expect me. It's interesting that I have a special relationship with the person that I was. In the trans community, a lot of people who've transitioned, both trans men and trans women, have a very strange relationship with the person they were before. It's not a very good relationship because they were in a place that they wanted to be out of, and caused them a great deal of stress and anxiety. And it's called the dead name that they had. For me, Rob provided me with the opportunities to be Katie. Not a great deal, but enough to keep my identity alive and to help me build the person that I am now. It was limited, but if it hadn't been for the way Rob behaved, if he'd have been stronger perhaps and suppressed those desires and rejected being Katie at all, then I wouldn't have the life that I have now. What if I transitioned earlier? What if I'd had the freedom to come out when I was a teenager, when I was younger? My life would have been totally different. Unfortunately, it would have meant that I would lose the family to have. I wouldn't have the wife that I've got. I wouldn't have the 2 daughters. I wouldn't have the 3 grandchildren that are with us and the 2 that didn't survive. I wouldn't have experienced those people at all. They wouldn't have lived if I'd have been a girl when I was a teenager. Happily, my wife and family now accept me. I've become the woman that I always wanted to be, but it's taken quite a while. I came out to my wife after 44 years of marriage, and she had absolutely no idea of that side of me. She found out a holdall full of the clothes that I'd stored in the garage, and she asked me what they were for. Normally I can find plausible excuses for anything to do wrong, but I'd been struggling for quite a while of how I could tell my wife that I was transgender without causing total emotional upset within the family. So I said for me to dress in, and went on to explain how I felt I was transgender. The encounter worked out exactly as I expected it would be. She was totally devastated that would happen. and we separated a month later. She'd asked, would it be enough just to go away for a weekend and dress as Katie? And normally I would have said, well, I'll try it. But I thought, no, this is an opportunity for Katie to come out completely and full time, or almost full time. So we separated a month later. We still love each other. I'm finally happy in the body that I've got as it changes and becomes more feminine. The image that I want is there. I support my wife. That was the vow that we had when we got married. So I still continue to do that. Happy my wife and family now accept me for who I am, as I've become the woman that I am, Katie, the one that I've always meant to be. However, it's been difficult for my wife. In her worldview, nowhere in that was there lesbian marriage, of being married to another woman. She wanted to retire with a husband and spend time together, doing the things that we had, free from the ties of work, with the money that we had. And it's something that we still haven't addressed yet. But what she says is that at that time, when I explained that I was transgender, she lost her husband. She lost him to another woman, Katie, who came and took him away, and she's hardly seen him since. Of course, we'll get round to resolving that situation later on. If our circumstances change and one of us has health problems and needs support, we'll reconsider the situation that we're in. And most likely, one of us will move in with the other. We'll move back together and care for each other, because the love is still there. And that's the difference between my gender identity, my sexual orientation, and the love that I feel for my wife. Those things in a normal heterosexual environment aren't a problem. They're different for us, and we will work our way around this. And again, we'll have to see. When we originally separated, it was on a 1-year trial basis. Again, just to see if it was the forbidden aspect of being Katie that was the attraction. Within 2 weeks of being Katie almost full time, I realised that Katie is staying. There was no way that she would change back. I still had to present as male in certain environments. When I was at work, I still presented as Rob. Within 6 months, though, I'd changed the things that I normally wear. My office dress was a white shirt, black trousers, black shoes. So I changed those to a white tailored blouse and female trousers from Marks and Spencer's, size 14, and a pair of ladies' shoes, black brogues. Nobody noticed a difference, but for me personally, I knew that I was presenting as female. My hair was a little bit shorter, that was all. Everybody else was content with how I was, and I was happy presenting that way because it was all I could do in that situation. I didn't feel confident enough to come out at work. As time went on, circumstances changed. Going through transition with the gender clinic, the hormones were beginning to give me physical changes, but they weren't too noticeable. But my face was softening a little bit, my breasts were developing, but those weren't too obvious. The biggest problem was mental fatigue due to lack of testosterone, and that impacted on the work I was doing. So I came out to my line manager, and then we worked out a transition at work. And in Easter of 2018, I transitioned at work and came out as Katie to everyone and worked like that. That was a massive change for me, a massive boost of confidence. Now, be Katie all the time. The impact on my work still remained, and I retired from work in October 2018, and just, not that I didn't have anything to do, plenty to do when I'm not working. A pension is enough for me to live on. One of the biggest problems that I've had in the last year, it was really difficult for me. I was scheduled for surgery in December 2019, and that got postponed to 26th of March 2020. And I was self-isolating as COVID started to reach out throughout the country and throughout the world. 6 days before surgery, I got a message to say that my operation had been postponed due to COVID. And then I got a call in the afternoon to say that my surgeon would have retired after the operation on myself. So by the time COVID sorted out, they wouldn't have a surgeon. So I wouldn't be able to have the operation I'd been waiting for 3 years. And they referred me back to the gender clinic. Of course, COVID's still here, so I still don't know when I'm going to have the surgery that I so desperately wanted for 60 years. But I know it's going to be there. And when it happens, it'll be 100% Katie Robinson. And that for me is worth the wait, but it's still devastatingly difficult. Thank you very much for that. I would think there'll be a few questions.
Katie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I've had the privilege to hear you speak before, and every single time it's so incredibly emotional and so truthful. You always speak so effectively from the heart. In the question and answer, we've got some really lovely messages of support, of thanks for sharing your story, Katie. So if you can read those when we're done, that would be ideal. I guess my question is, how does your story relate to those of other trans people?
My story is individual. We are all individuals, and my experience is unique. It's unique to me, to my environment, to my family. For other trans individuals, whether they're trans men or trans women, they're unique as well. So there will be some common threads in there. Difficult to forget in the services appointments, problems with family. In some cases, a lot more serious than I am. So my story, I don't know, isn't typical, I wouldn't think, because I'm an older woman. But it's you can't pigeonhole it and say that this is how it will go. So every individual, even twins, are different in the way that they react to things. So yeah, for other trans people, they're likely to be a totally different story to me.
Thanks, Katie. There might be, we obviously don't know who's watching this and who will watch it in the future when it's online. So there might be other older people who are potentially feeling and identifying with some of the things that you've spoken about. Is there any of the organisations you're involved with that you'd like to say a little more about and how they've helped you?
I've been associated with three transgender support groups. Two of them are more aimed at the younger spectrum of people, and I've found those very useful. To realise just how many problems you can have trying to live a transgender life, trying to become the person you want to be. And again, they're all different people in there. The one that I've found the most supportive, that I fitted in primarily, is Friends of Dorothy. They're aimed at older LGBT, 50 plus. And the difference that you get with a group of 18 to 25-year-olds and their conversations compared to 50 plus up to 80, 90-year-olds, their experiences, their view on life is totally different. It fits in with mine. They talk about things that I can relate to now, relate to back in my history, and that is massive. To be surrounded by similar people. It's one of the reasons that I went to Leeds First Friday, which is a tea girl event in Lower Briggate, because it was such a big group of people like myself. Again, plenty of differences around there as to how they presented, but to be in Friends of Dorothy and they're so supportive. They're such an amazing group of stories that you get from them, and I think if you're older LGBT, then definitely get in touch with Friends of Dorothy. Just Google them; they'll pop up, and just have a chat to us and see how it fits with yourself.
Thanks, Katie. And full disclosure, I'm one of the trustees of Friends of Dorothy, and it's also important to mention just how much work, as well as feeling included, Katie, how much work you do for the organisation and for others. And I think that links really well to one of the comments in the question and answer. Like I said, there's absolutely loads of really positive, lovely comments, which I can't all read out, but this I think is a really incredibly important one and links to the work that you do within Friends of Dorothy as well. But you've paved the way for others. My daughter came out to her family when she was 19 and to the world on Facebook when she was 20. Your visibility has given younger trans the confidence to live their authentic lives. And I think Sue Sanders has also mentioned how important it is that we have to highlight consistently the fight that we have to support the human rights of trans people. And actually, it's so important to hear stories of people living their authentic life to give that opportunity to those that are younger. So thank you so much, Katie, for sharing your story and for living your authentic life and for being that inspiration for other people.
Thank you.